Welcome to your Rocketwoman show. Are you looking to 10x your business while attracting your soulmate, finding eternal happiness and receiving the one solution to all of your problems? I promise you, you will find none of the above in this podcast. Your Rocketwoman has something far more precious for you. We'll get real and talk about the nitty-grittiness of life. From A as in anxiety, to L as in lol, to Z as in zest for life, we'll cover the whole spectrum. All of my guests are my heroes that have inspired me along the way. And here's the totally amazing rocket deal. I chat with my heroes and then they tell me which of their heroes I should invite on the show next. So every other episode we get to expand our universe beyond into the unknown, ever expanding and growing. I hope you enjoy this show, and it's an honor to inspire your rocket launch. Welcome to episode 4 of the Rocketwoman show. Now this one is a special one, and they all are, but this one is even more special because I get to speak to my first female guest. And it's a guest that comes through a recommendation, and I always love exploring other universes. And as you see in the background, I'm in the universe, and this means that this episode is a conversation with a friend's friend. Jonathan said, go speak with Muriël, and I have done so, and this was just such a game changer for me to speak with a woman about what it means to be an entrepreneur for the future and how we can pay back with inspiration, but also meaningful content and really making a difference. And I hope you enjoy this conversation exploring Muriel's universe. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to the Rocketwoman show. Today, I'm joined by Muriël, and Muriël is a friend of Jonathan's. And to get the whole context, you'll have to go back to episode 3 and listen to why I'm now speaking to Muriël, who's not one of my dear network friends and connections, but I'm very excited to have you here on the show, Muriël.
Well, thank you very much for inviting me via Jonathan, but thank you very much.
I followed his advice. He said you have to go speak to Muriël, and I'm so glad he did, because so far, episode 1, episode 2, episode 3, we had men.
Of course, the world is still ruled by men, so we have to change that. We have to swip it around.
Yeah, because I really want to, put the emphasis on Rocketwoman. And,
yes, definitely.
Exactly. So I'm so glad that we're now, we're now with the female support here, another Rocketwoman. I've known Muriël a little bit over the years, but we haven't really had an opportunity to spend a lot of time with each other. So even more so, I'm excited to learn a little bit more about your universe. So why don't you just introduce yourself a little bit?
To begin with, the proudest job in my life is being a mom of 3 grown kids by now. And I'm married to Tim, my dear husband. And I have a strange video and film production company in the Netherlands. And it's strange because we work in a different way than other companies work. We work according to a profit for purpose structure, which means we make money with our commercial assignments to try to arrange something else, something different. So my background is television and filmmaking, basically.
Yeah, so that's, from what I've heard about you is that you're really pushing the boundaries when it comes to doing it right. I'm really curious to hear from you, coming from the background of film and TV, and now setting up a structure that is basically in the industry so new. What led you to that?
Well, maybe I have to tell you a little bit about the background of this, of the company that I'm running now. It started out as a foundation really long time ago. And we were making films, short films, with a bunch of people, 2 other guys who started the foundation, actually. And but after a few films that we made together, they weren't really good. It was really difficult to try to get funding, and it was not a sustainable model. It was just, you know, trying to get films made for the fun of it. So to me, that was not a very, yeah, not sustainable. You also have to make some money. And so what happened is I took out myself of this equation, and I started this whole new concept where we make commercial productions for companies, and the money that we make, we put back into a foundation where we support new film talent, and where we try to, what we call, enhance the genre of the short film. And the reason behind it is that I do not believe in only taking or only giving. The whole beginning years of the first film foundation was only about giving, which is lovely. It sounds really wonderful, but it's not sustainable, because you can't keep on giving. You know, at some time, you know, the money is out, so you don't have to, you know, you have to figure something out on that perspective. So the only giving doesn't work, but only taking is also something that we see a lot around us, that also is, in my opinion, not sustainable. You cannot be in this world and only take. That means that if you only take, other people are giving too much. So the balance is out of it in that respect. So either only giving or either only taking means there's no balance. And to me, that is not a thing that is useful in the future. We see now, you know, the state of the earth, the state of the of nature. Balance, there's no balance anymore, because we took too much. So in my opinion, it's my vision to try to get some balance into every aspect of your life, which also means company-wise. So I made this structure, which is called Profit for Purpose, in order to take some and also give some. So there's a balance there. And yeah, that to me works, because now I can, you know, put my efforts into making money. And we do that strangely as well, because obviously we don't take the normal route there also, because we only want to work for companies that actually make the world a little better. And we have, you know, we're setting up this whole system on who do you work for and who you do you not work for. But the profit, because Jonathan said in your last episode, it's 10%, but we give actually 50% of our profit away to our own foundation, where we give this new film talent a chance. So the whole commercial branch is one thing that's already quite strange, because we don't work for any company. And then also the profit we give away. And then for the foundation part, it's pivotal to try to get new people on set a chance. And usually those are young people, but that's not the reason why we're in it. We're in it to give new people a chance, so they can be old. Usually they're young, but you know, there's a possibility of being a little bit older also. And but not only that, over there we've got the opportunity, because we finance these films ourselves, we've got the opportunity to actually direct what kind of message we want to send out. So for us, it's really important, the scripts that we are getting there and the scripts that we find interesting to make are also scripts that we think tell a story that needs to be told, or that needs to be heard by an audience. And for the Short Film Foundation, we put a lot of effort into not only guiding new talent, but also trying to get stories out there in a different way that short films are usually made. Because the short film genre is a genre that is basically quite niche. Not a lot of people know about short films, and it's the ticket for a lot of filmmakers to get their stuff out and to get their name out. So it's basically a very expensive business card for most filmmakers. And that to me is a waste of a lot of effort and time and money. So I would like to see that short films as a genre will be able to get messages that are in those films out there to a broader and larger audience, so that those messages can be heard. So that's something that we are working on the foundation. So two completely different businesses, basically two different models, but they work together and they were synchronized because one lives off the other. That's the whole principle of it.
Yeah, wow. That's, I mean, I can't even wrap my head around rebuilding something from the ground up. And then, you know,
Yeah,
like putting the emphasis on, oh, and it needs to be meaningful, and it needs to be only with people that are, you know, telling a story that sort of, you know, makes our hearts and souls sing.
yeah,
And then I also want to support the young talent, but they don't have to be young. And then it's like, you know, I can imagine that that took you quite a while to shift it. And it's
yeah,
great
I
to,
did.
you know, sit here and go like, oh yeah, you've come up with a new structure. That's
Yeah,
fantastic. You know,
yeah.
you didn't just wake up one morning and did that. So how long did it take you to A, have the confidence that you're able to shift gears, and then actually convince others, because you know we all have dreams and everything, but how did that work out for you?
I think the whole process started when I started with this other foundation years ago. I think it was 10, 12 years ago, where we started out with two guys who thought it would be fun to make films. And my background was television making. So I was interested in filmmaking because I didn't know how that process went. So the whole idea behind not just, you know, being in a position of giving was because of that period. We made a lot of films. It was a lot of fun. We had, you know, it was really enjoyable. I learned a lot. But in the end, it made me realize, okay, you can't just make these films just for the fun of it. Why are you making them? For whom
Mm.
are you making them? Is it useful to make them, or is this just a hobby and are we just having fun? Which is also a viable point of view, but that was not for me. I thought, you know, this needs to be more sustainable. You need to be able to put a little dot into the future, and how will you get to that dot? So that's when I started thinking about making money at the same time, because, you know, short films, you make them by trying to get funding. So every time you make a film, you have to try to get funding either via governments or film funds or private parties. So every time it's a hassle to try to get some money to get your films made. So that means you're jumping from project to project. That also means that you can't put the dot on the horizon quite far, because you have to struggle to get those films made in the meantime. So for me, the whole thinking process was both. You cannot continue by just giving. You cannot continue by just helping out others. There also has to be some taking, and that led me to thinking, okay, the taking part must be money, because that way, if we have money, if we have an income coming in, we don't have to struggle for each film to say, okay, we want to get this script made, so we need to, you know, hassle for money here and try to get some funding there. That way we would have more of a steady income of money, so that we can say, okay, now this year we want to make one film and we will need it to be about this and that subject, and the next year we can make two. So then you have a more you're able to get a more long-term vision into your process, into your company. So it really took a while, because, you know, in the beginning years, but just having fun and making films was absolutely lovely and absolutely fantastic, and we had a blast. But you can't just keep on doing that. But it also gave me a chance to learn how the whole short film industry is organized in the Netherlands. At least I know it mainly in the Netherlands, and how that is structured, and what we were, you know, encountering, and what we heard from other filmmakers, what they were encountering, and how did they get their projects made. And so it was a really large learning process, but I needed that in order for me to come up with this kind of model. And I think also some influences, a lot of influences from other people. The old prime minister from New Zealand, I always pronounce her name incorrectly, but she, for instance, said that you shouldn't judge companies just based on their profit. You should also maybe base their how do you say, their output on how happy the people are that work in their companies, and how good you are for the environment, how good you are for the, you know, the city that you're in. So that those are remarks that made me think, okay, you know, you have to think broader than just the profit or just your dot on the horizon where you want to go. So it's an integrated process of lots and lots of ideas, talking to people, growing within myself, growing within the company. So it's been a while, but by now I'm confident within the structure that we made up, and it's starting to show also for other people as well, that we get some recognition now because of this strange model, and we get more and more companies that are that want to do business with us because of this model. So it's now starting to, you feel like, you know, the whole universe is starting to gather around, and you know, things are moving faster and faster and faster, and so that's really interesting and really rewarding also to see that, you know, I was this one idiot in the desert calling out like, we need to restructure things. You know, it's not possible to continue like this. And now finally people are starting to see that as well. And so that's really interesting, and that's really rewarding for me.
Yeah, I can imagine. And I think, you know, restructuring, we all know what it takes to restructure your own life, but to then restructure something like such a beast with so many moving elements, and to create a momentum that that you can come to the point, like how you say, it's starting to pay off and you're starting to really feel the reward of that already.
Yeah.
But I can imagine like changing or being a pioneer in the vision of how you want to contribute in your respective industry. That takes also a lot of conviction, right?
Yeah.
How, you know, like maybe also the way that I see it is, you know, we've had the pandemic, we've all had time to go back and sort of rethink our lives and rethink our, you know, like what do I still want to achieve, and how do I want to contribute to a better world? Because I always think that basically everybody would like to live in a better world. It's just that most people don't know how.
Yeah.
Um,
And it is also really difficult, you know, for the respect maybe for sustainability. We worked for a company that did amazing stuff. They invented a complete biological what's a horse resin, and it's possible to make all kinds of stuff with that. And we worked for the company, and that was amazing. But what you can also find there are really high level technicians and inventors and stuff like that. And when you start to talk with them, you think that like with your little plastic bag you shouldn't do that because it's really horrible, but in the end they told me, you know, the little bags that you buy that you think that are sustainable are actually less sustainable than buying this one plastic bag and keeping that, not throwing it away, and reuse it over all the time. So the same with electrical cars. I don't know these you know, I'm not an expert, but you hear these things like electrical cars, like really good for the environment. But then you hear that the batteries are made somewhere in Africa with child labor, and that it's all really bad for the environment. So you try to do good, and you have no idea about the real background of most things. So it is really difficult to try to navigate this new world where we're all going to be in, this whole rethinking of how you use the planet, of how you use your how do you say, your the stuff that the earth gives you. I don't know what
the resources.
Resources, thanks.
Yeah.
So we have to rethink all that because we have to, but it's really difficult to try to navigate in that new world. So we find that as well. I find that as well. And but that it's difficult does not mean that you should not try. And I'm not holier than the Pope. Huh? I still fly an airplane, but I try to not eat meat, and because I know how polluting that industry is. So it's difficult. You try from what you know from other people that are probably very experienced in some sort of way. But then also I know from experience that not everything that is communicated properly, because there are some industries that have ties or have reasons to make sure that the message that gets out there is just a little bit different, but better for their wallet. So it's really, really difficult to try to navigate this new world. And so I always try to stick with what I do know, and I do know my own world. I do know about short filmmaking in the Netherlands, and that's something that I can change because I know how that world is organized. And that's basically the only thing that I think you're able to do, because all people are experts on some sort of terrain. Everybody has some sort of expertise, and if you understand that expertise, maybe communicate it and try to change it from within, because you know how that is organized. You have your powers there. I don't have any power in electrical vehicles, but I do have some power in my own short film world, how small and how little that is.
But that's beautiful, and I think that's the inspiring part where and it doesn't matter, if we talk about spirituality, if we talk about entrepreneurship, if we talk about the new leadership or feminism or whatever. In the end, like you say, you have to be aware of what you're bringing to the table, and that's what I'm so passionate about, to speak with people like you who have honed their skill and combined it with their drive, and know that that's how, that's basically the vehicle how they can put something into the world that will hopefully make an impact on, either inspiring other people or into the environment or whatever it may be. But I think being in such a homogenized world where, I think we were raised by the same generation, where it was pretty much survival and, that's just how you do it, to then almost like skip a step and leap ahead and say like, okay, I'm not just going to try to make this one better, but I'm also going to start thinking about the future, because things are changing so fast. And Jonathan has left a question for you, which I think this is a good time to ask. Where do you see this vision going? Like, where would you see it in, say, 5 years?
Oh, that's hopefully so I always have to communicate two ways. Like for the commercial branch, I hope we will not be an exception anymore. I hope that we just received the certificate of being an official social enterprise, which means that we have, because of this profit for purpose structure that we have, I hope that's not going to be an exception anymore. I hope for businesses that it will be a normal integrated part of their business to have some profit going back into something that is important to that business. So I hope that's something that I hope for the commercial branch. For the short film foundation, I hope that we are able to start thinking about this industry as a proper industry, because it doesn't make any money. It hardly makes any money. It's only money goes into this industry because you have all these new filmmakers who want to show their work, and it's an expensive kind of work that they want to show. It's not something that every now and then somebody brilliant comes along that shoots a whole movie with an iPhone, but usually that's not the case. Usually you have to have a team around you and a whole department helping you out making a film. So I do hope that we are able to mature the short film industry in a way that larger audiences will like to watch short films the way they like series, or the way they like YouTube films, or the way they like feature films. Because even in the short amount of time that short film usually is, because officially I think it's until 50 minutes or so, but usually short films are around 15 minutes, maybe half an hour. That's usually what it's like. And you can tell a really cool story and a really inspiring story, a really dramatic story within that time frame. And so that will be my wish for the short film foundation, that whole industry matures, and that we start to understand that you can also make money from this and use that money to put back into the industry. So the next generation will also have a chance to try to get their work made and try to get their voices heard. And so that part to me is interesting, because that's where you need older people, like more experienced people, to hand over, the baton to the next generation. And that is something that we also always keep in mind with our productions, to have more experienced people on set mixed with people that are quite new. So this way, the younger generation can not only learn from the older generation, but it's great for the older generation as well to see this enthusiasm of the younger generation, and they think of things completely different, because I was raised without a mobile phone. Fuck, I'm that old.
We're dinosaurs.
That is so old. But my kids, they've been raised with this phone, so they completely think differently than I do, because
They challenge your thinking, yeah.
Right, and their universe is way bigger, because the universe was at the, in their hand. For us, that was in a library, if you were lucky to find a book that had a subject that you were interested in. So it's also really important for this, older, more experienced generation to learn from this new cool kids on the block. So it's the working together part. So again, it's balance. That's the balance part also. You don't only need to balance out money coming in, money going out. You also need to balance people. Like, who are you happy, and is everybody happy? And that means that you have to have some sort of, nice balance between what they are giving and what they are taking. So,
and also the motivation for them to be willing to work together with somebody who challenges their mindset, right? And then I think we've talked about in previous episodes, I've talked with my guests about the challenge of the cancel culture, for example, right? Like living in a time where controversy is everybody has their own bubble, so it's people just don't like to have that confrontation of having their mindset challenged, or having their vision even questioned, especially the older ones, where I mean I often even find myself thinking, like, who do you think you are? Like, back in my times, we walked to school in in deep snow for 7 hours. Not that I did, but it is there's also quite a bit of responsibility that comes with opening up a safe space, so that everybody feels that they are invited to contribute with the, so you're leading with a win-win, rather than trying to minimize the negative components that could absolutely arise. How do you see the future tying into that? I'm really excited about the whole, the way that our worlds will grow through artificial intelligence, technology, and all of that. I know it has other capacities to make things worse as well, but I'm mainly just that hopeful person, and I feel that you are too. Otherwise, you wouldn't, why would you then set up something like this? That, how is that vision influenced? Yeah, how is that influenced by the future vision?
Well, to me, it's like AI is yes, it can be freaking scary if you think of what you can do with it in a negative point of view. It can be incredibly dangerous, but on the other hand, it also brings great opportunity. And I already use AI a lot. I don't hardly use Google anymore if I need to research anything. I just go to ChatGPT, and it just gives me stuff. And like making documents, it's so easy to get a setup from ChatGPT, and then fill it in with your own background or whatever you need, whatever story you need to tell. So I'm not that afraid of it. To me, it's also a bit like you cannot stop it. So if there's just no way that genie will go back into the bottle again. Never. It's just not going to happen. So you can do two things and start yelling that it's all going to be really scary and we really need, not to use it, or try to use it in a way that it's positive, and try to make rules in order for the idiots trying to use this in the wrong way to try to minimize that damage that might occur. And but that's always, because that's human nature. It's like people are innately, is that what you say? Innately intelligent, and so they will figure people will figure out new stuff in the future. They will always do. That's just a fact. So, you know, are you going to be the brake on that, or are you going to try to move along and get the good stuff out of it and just hope to leave the negatives behind? And it's the same for AI. It's not going to stop. It is here. It will only grow. So we better make sure that we are able to use it in the correct way, and with the, you know, a good mindset, but also a good, you know, regulatory system behind it. So to me, that's not a challenge. That's more of an, you know, a question mark, like where will it go? What will people figure out to make of this kind of stuff? And to me, for filmmakers especially, that's also really interesting. It's not only scary. It's not only, oh, I'm going to lose my job. You know, what could you do with it? Because in the end, you know, really, really taking a human out of every equation, I don't see that happening. I mean, then technology needs to be even, you know, I don't know how many times more intelligent that they've already established with AI. That you will always feel, and for in my trade for film, I think people will always feel somehow via their system. I don't know. They will probably feel that they're looking at something AI, but AI is just a technical thing. You know, in filmmaking, we've been looking at stuff that has not been real for years and years. I mean, there's no way people can float into galaxies, and you know, and suddenly there's a
It's true,
camera
yeah.
person there that is, you know, collecting all these images. No way. It's all been
This is a real background, by the way.
yeah, yeah. VFX, SFX. I think Remco will be very proud of me that I'm telling this right now. But so no, yeah, seriously, it's already been fake for a really long time in my profession. So that will not change. And I think you'd better use AI in a creative way, and hopefully make some, you know, stuff that is even more beautiful than we would have thought of in the beginning. It's just not, the scary part is not going to go away by wishing it is not happening, because it's already happening.
No, and you can't just sit back and wait for you know, for the wave to be over. But I really want to now I love what you're mentioning. Like in the end, it's been happening forever. You know, we've been using imagination for storytelling, and that has taken us outside of our perceived 3D reality, or what we thought is possible. But then again, you know, as a storyteller, you are inspiring the imagination of your audience, but you are also inspired by something, right? You know, yes, of course, probably inspired by your peers, you know, by the people that you look up to, but also inspired by an energy, a consciousness, the universe, whatever you want to, you know, however you want to fill that in for yourself. But in the end, I think we're all becoming way more sensitive and more perceptive to those inspirations. And then to have a tool at hand that helps you translate it. And even if that's, say, if it's just a movie that's completely done with AI, with no actors, no writers, whatever, that could also be inspiring, right? I think to stop thinking in that black and white sense of that's bad and that's good, or that's true and that's false, or whatever.
Yeah, I understand. It's always scary when something new comes along, because for some people this might actually have really serious consequences job-wise. It's gonna be the truth that some people will either lose their jobs over this, or have to change it in such a way that they are able to, you know, stay on the bandwagon. And that's obviously horrible for people who are in positions like that. But that still doesn't make it stop. It doesn't make it go away. And to me, that is something that is also part of my, you know, thinking, is that if you look at the future, if you look at the stuff that is still going to happen, half of it, or you know, most of it, we don't even know yet. So we better learn to move along with that river, because the river is gonna flow, and you're either you're in the river and you're flowing with him, or you're standing on the sideways and yelling at everybody in the river, please don't jump in the river, but the river's gonna go. And so holding back because something new arises, I don't know how useful that is. I understand the feeling behind it. You know, some stuff changes and it's scary. But it's yeah, it's like trying to stop a car that's, you know, driving towards you. I mean, it's not going to stop. You better jump out of the way, or try to figure out a way to jump into the car and maybe enjoy the ride. You just don't know. But
Especially when you see where it's headed, right? I think, you know, it's a little bit like way more comfortable to watch. You know, I'm thinking of this Roman stadium, you know, like you watch the fight going on in the pit, but ultimately, if you want to change the outcome of always, you know, watching the same story unfold, you'll have to jump in there, or, you know, like kind of also sacrifice a part of you that is scared and say, in order to do, you know, like we're a speck of dust in time and in space. So I know, you know, taking up the courage takes quite a bit of energy, but sooner or later, you know, it's a blink of an eye that, you know, and then you're old. I mean, we figured out that, you know, life doesn't last forever, at least not in this physical vessel. So how important do you think, or how much of the importance is known to people in the industry that are clinging on to the old?
I don't know. We've created such a bubble of our own that because of our system, we hardly are able to get any funding via the official channels like the Film Fund, because either our director is too young or too old or too female or too male, or there's always something wrong. We never fit in one of the boxes of the Film Fund. So we are so used of creating our own little bubble and creating our own stuff that I only know what's going on because of the people that we work with on set. And usually we choose these people because they're positive people, because I sort of always divide the world into naysayers and yay-sayers. And you get people like that on all levels, also highly professional. So the last film that we did, the last short film that we did, it's coming out in September, hopefully at the Dutch Film Festival. But the script is written by Ronald Giphart, who is a very experienced author in the Netherlands. And the main part was played by Diewertje Blok, one of our, you know, leading presenters, obviously the only and one and only person for the Sinterklaasjournaal, and also an actress in and those are people that are really experienced, highly professional, and these people are yay-sayers. When I approach them with the story, like, hey, would you, you know, mind jumping in and helping the next generation making their, you know, their film and getting their stories out and having their skill set improved? They both jumped on the occasion, and that says something about their characters. Those are people that are willing to have an open mind, to say yes to things, not only and always no. And then I met some, you know, kind people, but with not such a very high portfolio as Diewertje and Ronald. And they were like, oh my God, there's so many people that keep asking me these things, and I cannot work for free. And then you think, okay, so that has nothing to do with it has to do with how you approach life. And some people approach life with a yes kind of attitude, and some people approach life with a no kind of attitude. And that doesn't mean that I don't accept people that say no. That's not the case, because sometimes it's just very valid reason not to say it, because the project is not yours, or because you need to make money or whatever. It's just that some people have this whole attitude of, no, it's just negativity. And since we pay for these short films ourselves, we are in the luxurious position to choose the people that we work with. So if we kind of feel this attitude from somebody, we are kindly, you know, not working with people like that, because they're infectious to a whole set, to a whole system. If we have people around on set that are negative and, you know, complaining or whatever, you are, you know, contaminate all the other people that are there just thinking, yeah, we're going to make this great film together and this is going to be fantastic and we're going to shoot for the moon. And so to me, the whole yay sayers and naysayers thing is it's very basic. I know it's a very basic, but it gives me good guidance in whoever we want to work with, because you just feel it. We just work with a production assistant who wants to be an editor. And he just said yes to anything we asked him because he just wanted to learn. And that's amazing. I love people like that.
Mm.
And I think if you have a team around you who has this yes kind of spirit, you will always go so much further than if you have a team around you that has a no spirit, because that will be the brake on lots and lots of things. And yes, people are just crazy enough to start running, and maybe they run into a wall, but at least they get a little bit further than a naysayer would. So that's my whole division of working with teams. And I
Yeah.
completely lost track of the original question, but
That's no, and that's what the rocket does. The
that's
rocket
difficult
just,
for me.
we're already past that universe, so we're already out in the omniverse now. What really stands out for me is in order to change the paradigm, and here I'm taking it out of the context of the film industry, in order to make a lasting impact of change, I think we need to start thinking bigger than our own vision and purpose and fulfillment, right?
Yeah,
Thinking in contribution, like how can we contribute to community, to a
yeah,
movement, to the win-win scenario, and to just introducing the notion that everybody is responsible for change and can make a difference. And I think that
yeah,
that's oftentimes in the older generations, I mean, stupid example of separating trash, right? Like people think like,
yeah,
oh, it doesn't make a difference, right? If I do it, everybody's just throwing it all together anyway. But I think we just don't, that's a luxury we just don't get away with anymore.
yeah,
It's this, and to say I'm only going to have people on set or in my team or in my vision, in my energy, even if it's just, even if it's not about business, even if it's just about like interacting with any kind of person, I wanted to compound into the win-win-win-win-win, and I
yeah,
wanted to go that direction. And even though I can't predict it, I'll just assume and trust that when my good intention is there, that again, a bigger force or a bigger field might come in and actually say like, well, we're gonna pour some oil into that fire.
yeah. But I think it's also that it's going to be some sort of tipping point where you have enough individuals like you and I are, trying our best, not being perfect at all, but trying our best. If that group starts to become bigger and bigger, then all of a sudden you will find that the tipping point will knock over, and that you will all start walking in the well, the new direction. I can't say right because you don't know what's right yet, but I think it's important to try to realize we're only just a little part of something huge, and we are not. So the whole concept of borders is actually kind of strange. It's a human invention.
Yeah.
It's not something that is in nature. A border in nature is a river or a mountaintop or something like that. So I think we all start to realize now that we are part of this whole entity called the earth, and we are all living on it. And in order for us to lead happy lives, that means that somebody else far away from us also needs to be able to have a happy life, because you need balance. That's this whole period to me is this whole reshuffling of balance. We are fighting resources, and we should not be fighting resources. We should use them in such an innovative way that everybody can use them. So I think we start to slowly realize what's good for me will be good for you, instead of what's good for me is only good for me, and maybe my kids and maybe my little circle around me, but not good for anybody else because I just don't care. I think that way of thinking is going to be hopefully very old-fashioned very, very soon. It's just not possible. It's just not possible. I don't know how. Don't have the solution. I just know that there's something's got to give, and which also means that on a personal level you have to give up stuff, and don't know how yet. I told you I don't know how, but I know when I saw these documentaries, that's why I love film, because they can make such an impact about the whole meat industry. It's easy. I just, I rarely eat meat. I don't bring meat into the house anymore. At home we're vegan, and outside of the house when you're visiting people, okay, I'm not gonna say hello, please, I'm vegan, because I don't want to burden that on other people who don't have the same opinion, because that's what you said, like you should also be able not surround yourself only with the people that think the same way like you do. And but it's maybe you can have conversations that will start to look a little bit into your point of view, and maybe that will help them change their ways, and maybe you can get inspired by other people and that will help you change your ways. So it's a lot about, I think, actually listening to each other, and being open to different opinions, even though they're not your own, because if you're not open to them, that means they will find each other and get this strange sort of group together, which will start saying ridiculous things. And I think you'd better listen to people like that with all these different opinions. But it's
but we can't escape it anyway. And I think that, if you pay attention to the algorithm of social media, for example, that in a way, there are no boundaries. Like there's nothing weird anymore about anything, right? Like anything and everything exists somewhere. So in that regard, our worlds are already becoming bigger and bigger and bigger, and we're just catching up. And we're just catching up by, all of the sudden noticing that something that used to be right maybe for a while just doesn't work anymore, or, it doesn't make sense anymore, because our perspectives have shifted and changed. And that's why it's so important. I mean, you could argue, of course, oh, who needs another filmmaker in the short film industry? Who needs another podcast about inspiration? I do think that that's our bloody responsibility to contribute in some manner or form. And even if I walk away from this tomorrow and find a new expression, it will always come from a real place, from the real urge of wanting to add my energy to something that's bigger than me.
Yeah, and I also think for me, and I don't know if that goes for everybody, but who has children, but I see what needs to change in front of me every day because of my kids. I see that if they want to live in this world happy and without war and with a healthy planet, we're still very far away from that. So if we want to change that, then we need to change that because of the next generation, because they are going to continue on this planet, and their children and their children and their children. So for me, it's sort of a wake-up call seeing my kids every day, seeing, okay, that's the next generation, and we better be bloody careful with what we do ourselves in our lives, because that has an impact on theirs and their children's and their children's. So it's not just a responsibility that I feel is right to make right now. And to me, the changes I make are just little drops in the water. It's just nothing huge. There are people working out there on cancer medication and on trying to get CO2 out of the air, and and there are people that are actually doing really heroic stuff. So what I'm doing is just tiny little bit, but it makes me realize that doing something now for yourself without implications to the future, it's a little bit of a waste. Because why would you, if you're doing something, why don't you do something that you like, that you're good at, that also has some positive implications for the future? And maybe the future is tomorrow, but preferably you can make something that goes on a long way. And that's my take also on my industry, that I think we are able to get great stories out there that might be an inspiration to people, that might give people this idea like, oh God, I never thought of it that way, or darn, they're right, you know, maybe I should, you know, pick up a hobby or help my neighbor or whatever, or just be happy because you saw something that was, you know, lovely, and just be happy for a little while. So I think the whole thing of thinking to stay on your little stamp on this earth, just doesn't work anymore. I think people are starting to realize that what we do now here today in our own little orbit has implications and ramifications far, far, far away from our site. And I
And
think,
even outside of from what we can see, right? Say, for
yeah,
example, you're talking about, you know, raising children. You know, I've got
yeah,
two of my own, and
yeah,
the way that you handle it with your three children, I think in the end, what's really important is to be aware that we won't know if our input will have an immediate effect. We don't,
yeah,
it's not just what you see, because it's like a ripple. You don't know, you
yeah,
know, like, even if it might feel really small. And I told the story in the other episode where um you know, I was on the bus, and you get different bus drivers, right? Like in public transport here in the Netherlands, you know, some are grumpy, and some you don't even notice. And then, you know, every once in a while you come across one that really makes a difference, because he wishes good morning to everybody. And, you know, just the authenticity and the heart and the wanting to go into connection. So I said to this bus lady driver, thank you so much. I so appreciate your the way that you are making this impact here, and it really makes a difference. While I was getting out of the bus, and she was just gobsmacked, and she said,
yeah,
wow, I appreciate that so much. Thank you so much. So we don't know, and I'm not saying this or doing this in order to, you know, oh, you know, now I can make that little green check mark behind my day, you know, good karma.
yeah,
um, it's really just about not holding it back when you feel it. How often do we think something like, oh, you know, oh, that person has a nice smile or has a beautiful
yeah.
way of dressing themselves or
I
whatever, and we
tell
don't
now.
say it.
I say it now. I've been doing
Yeah.
years, and it's so fun because you get you know, the nicest conversations out of just giving a compliment. Like, but like you said, it has to be authentic. If
Hmm.
you know, I was in a shop one day, and there was this lady, and she was beautiful, and she had this really amazing kind of, you know, suit on, and she was wearing it like a queen, like she was so gorgeous. So I came up to her and said, like, you really look really cool, and like your outfit and stuff like that. And then she said, oh, thank you so very much. And then when we started talking, she said she was a really insecure person, and she was
Yeah.
doubting whether she was wearing that today because it was kind of out there. And so it was funny because she didn't look like that, and this whole conversation made it, you know, you step into somebody else's world. Just as a conversation starter, it's already a good thing.
Yeah.
And but I think also that women are way better at that usually. Don't want to discriminate, but than men. And I think also now, and that's also something for me that I like to envision for the future, that the balance between men and women in life in general is going to be way better than it is right now.
Mm.
It is still such a patriarch society. And if you start looking into that, you can see that evidence every day around you, that it's such a patriarch society. And even Tim and I in our household, the way we organize stuff, it's also like, you know, quite old fashioned actually. And we started noticing, said, hey, by the way, why are you taking out the trash, and why am I doing the dishes? Seriously, why don't we switch that around? And I think that the whole world could do with a lot more, you know, feminist and female energy,
Mhm.
because women approach things usually quite differently than men. And that's not to say that men are wrong, but you need both kind of energies to have, again, that balance, to make sure that you make decisions on a level that is good for, you know, both half of the populations, because, you know, it's 50-50. I mean, we have guys, we've got girls, and then obviously also the non-binary people, and whatever you want to choose as being. But still, it's, I think the whole feminine feel behind things is going, we need that more. We need that way more. The empathy that is usually for women something more of a natural given than for guys. Again, not always, but it's I think we need more and more feminine energy to surround us and to break through this whole, you know, patriarch way of thinking things. And it's so embedded in our culture.
It's
so
ingrained. It's in our cells, right? It was part of the background frequency for so long. And the way that I see it, of course, you know, taking my little nuance of astrology into it and human design, like we are moving into new times where it's not about, you know, the female or the male body, but it's about the balance of the energies inside of oneself, and then, you know, how you give that airtime when you interact with others. And I love the way that you put it with your personal experience with your husband, to say, oh, why are we doing the things the way that we're doing them? So there's not even the accusation of, oh, but this is wrong and we have to do it the other way. That's why, you know, oftentimes I found it difficult to even sympathize with a lot of the feministic movement, because for me it's like, come on, you know, we're just going to, you know, put another donkey in front of the apple cart. It's just, you know, against. No, where can we be for something and get excited about it? Let that be the leading energy, because, you know, you might have female leaders like we had in the past. I'm German, and if you pay a little bit attention to politics, we did have a woman president, a chancellor for a long time. But that didn't mean that there was a lot of that feminine energy going around. So I think
if you were to survive in that world at that time,
absolutely,
as a woman, you better behave like a guy, because otherwise you're out. So I think, and I hope now, that because there are more and more women in all kinds of positions, that it's starting to become more normal for a person to be itself, herself, himself, who cares, but more that that you can bring your own energy. And I think, especially in politics, it is such a male environment. To be able to survive in that environment as one of the first women out there must have been horrific. And so you better play the boys' game, because that's the only way you probably are able to,
because you also want to connect, right? And I think that that's really bringing it back to what you said earlier in our conversation, that, you know, oh, I might not do it perfectly, but I do the best that I can every day. I think if we even were able to, you know, flip the switch completely and, you know, do it perfectly, we're totally leaving out that this is a flowing process, right? Like it needs to be integrated, like all of the personal development stuff too. Like when I work with clients, you don't say what would be the perfect expression of you know, of me or of that behavior. You go like, okay, what is a step that you can take that feels good, that you know, you might question your comfort zone, but you're still in the safety zone, because once we leave the safety zone, then it's also not durable or maintainable. So I think that that's like a really nice way of closing that loop and saying, like, it does matter to keep chipping away on that, you know, the best version of me. And the best version of me, if I would only have 30% to give on one day and I give 25, then, you know, I'm already pretty up high in that close to 100, you know, way of contributing my positivity. So
and other people see that effort as well, and that's, I think that's all. Or other people see your effort, your kids see your effort, and that makes them, I think, on a subconscious level also, you know, trying to give their best effort, because they see you do that. And if if you have some sort of job and people see you give your best effort, it's usually quite an inspiration for others to do the same thing. So it's just giving your best effort is already something as that should be applauded. That should that's
Yeah.
inspirational. Just give it your best effort. Doesn't mean you're gonna succeed. Doesn't mean you're not gonna be horrible at it. Might be, but at least you gave it your best shot. And I think giving your best shot is already such a good thing and such a rewarding thing also to do for yourself, that just give it a try. And that's how I approach life, because I just gave it a try and we kind of successful up till this point. So why not give it
Yeah.
a try?
I'm super inspired by your story, and I'm really curious to see where this is going. How long have you actually been in this place that you feel, okay, now I've turned the page and I really feel that things are finally coming together? Just a little
Well,
bit of context there.
actually not that long, because we had this commercial assignment for the Danish Tourist Bureau. So we went to Denmark to show an audience all the different things you could do in Denmark, and they're quite sustainable in Denmark. So I love that. So we did this whole cycling tour, and how you on a boat trip with a solar sail and everything. So it was to me that was really interesting. I really loved myself being there and seeing all these things. But that's actually where I met Ronald and Diewertje, and I shot that production with a director that was one of the directors that we met on our short film foundation. So I knew that he was good. I also knew he never did a television show in his life before. So they approached me and they said, okay, it was kind of last moments that they approached me, said, are you able to make that happen? Television show in Denmark. I said, sure, I'll be able to, get a good team together, but don't question the team. This is what you're going to get. We are very low on time, so this is what we're going to do. So the first day of shooting in Denmark, I was shooting with Diewertje Blok and Twan Huis, who is a very famous Dutch journalist, a television anchor. And I was sitting there with this very first time television director short film director that never directed any television show in his life before. So we had this whole day, first day of shooting, and at night we were having dinner. And so I was asking them, how did you think it went? Did you like it? And they said, yeah, it was a bit different because a little bit more filmic. And I was like, yeah. And they said it was really good atmosphere and everything. So I said, did you like what we shot? Yeah, they loved it. I said, okay, good. I have to tell you something. This guy never did anything like this before, but we knew he was good. But his resume didn't state anything of the kind. So that was my very first success in a way.
Yeah.
That model that I invented, like supporting young filmmakers, and then taking the good ones to the commercial branch. That was my very first hooray moment. I say, oh yes, it worked. I mean, we really made a good television show there with a first-time director for
When was that?
And I think that was 3 years ago. 2-3 years ago. And that's where I met Ronald and Diewertje, and we were having dinner one night after shooting with Ronald. And so I started to explain a little bit about my model, my business model. And then he said, oh, that sounds so interesting. I would love to write a script for a short film once. I said, don't say that to me, because I will grab you. And that's exactly what happened. And then Diewertje said, oh, I'd love to act again. And so I said, okay, guys, don't say this because I will grab you. And I did. So I after everything was over, I called them and I said, are you, was this just fun and jokes, or are you serious? And they said, no, we're serious. So Ronald wrote the script with his daughter, who never wrote a script before. So that was her first time, which was amazing. And Diewertje did the main part. So that film is in post-production now. And the story of the film is so important especially for young girls who are on with their faces in Instagram all day long. So the story is about not getting back into your little cubicle again as women, because we've had women like Diewertje who fought for our freedom away from men. So why are girls now putting themselves back into these little cubicles? Because Instagram dictates how they should dress and how they should talk and how they should walk and how they should whatever. So the film is about that, this older generation of women to, against these newer generation, younger generation of women. So now we've got very experienced filmmakers working together with new filmmakers, getting them from the commercial branch and the foundation part together, having a story that is really important to get out there, made by a director who has his new talent. So now all of a sudden, everything that I've been thinking about and everything that I've been working on is now together in this one film. And it's
Wow.
film. So now we have this, business card saying, this is what you can do if you support new talent. This is what you can do if you start connecting worlds instead of having them all separate, like commercial is separate from short film, is separate from TV, is separate. If you everybody sticks to their own island, we will never have bridges. And so that's was my success. I was like, yes, it freaking finally worked, because it was a long time coming before we were able to get also the interest of people like this. Like, they're really very, very professional people. And it was, to me, that was something that was big private success. Like, the things that I thought of, we actually now have visible in a film that we can actually show to other people. And the whole system behind it, the whole way it was produced, was part of this whole, new way, profit for purpose way of doing business. So that was my
super motivating. I mean, what would you say, and this is before we come to the last part of the Rocketwoman show, but what would you say to somebody who feels that in their respective industry really wants to try out something new, not necessarily only film, but
yeah.
What would you say? What's the advice you would give them?
Well, usually the advice that everybody would say was that just do it, just do it. But that's usually not always realistic, because you can start trying to change this industry, but if it means you losing your job over it, then it's all not realistic anymore. So I always try to think, change what you can, what you think is possible, without endangering your entire being. And if you feel like, being the one that just throws in the hammer somewhere in a window, I mean, by all means, do your thing. But that's usually not very possible for most people. So I would say, do whatever you can, but at least start walking. Because if you stick and sit on your chair, think about things, nothing will change. So even if you put one foot in front of the other, is already way more than probably your neighbor is doing. So at least start walking. And then maybe you end up in the wrong street, but you learn so much from walking into the wrong street, that you will get to the right street after that. So just start walking within your capacity, within your, realm of possibilities, but at least start walking. That's the most important thing.
This is really, I think this is great advice, because in the end, we get the world that we feed, right? And if we don't take those steps, if it just stays in the head, and I'm a master at this, or have been for the longest time, and I keep challenging myself to take that next step. If I want to experience something else needs to be in the movement of that. And I think to give that advice, and to maybe even add, keep track of the changes that you're making, so that you'll be able to look back on a short or on a time span and say, like, at the end of the year, I'll look back at this and go like, wow. For example, my daughter started putting like this jar next to her bed, and every now and then she adds a little note to it, right? Like,
that's cool.
and then at the end of the year, I think New Year's Eve, she's going to take all of them out and look at what this year has brought. Like, so I think to keep track of it, because we're so consumed by everything needing to be fast and instant, the instant gratification, the instant results, all of that, that we sometimes tend to forget that it compounds over time.
Yeah, that's a good one. I'm gonna steal that here.
Yeah. Oh, please do, please do. Yeah, and I'm not a great journaler. For me, it's always this. I'll keep it in my head, but then in the classic manifesting generator style, there's just like this whole universe in my head, and I do forget because I'm also getting older. So, which brings us to the sexy six. It's the 6 questions I always ask my guests at the end of an inspiring talk, and they're pretty random. Whatever comes to mind, just shoot from the hip.
Oh,
What
God.
skill would you like to have?
What? Sorry?
What skill would you like to have?
Oh, what skill? Oh, I would love to be able to crawl into somebody else's head.
Oh, Lord.
Don't go there. I just think what they're thinking. Oh, that would be so, I would love that.
How
Yeah.
long would you like to do that? Like 24
Just,
hours?
no. Way shorter than that, I think.
That's awesome. Next one. If you could spend an hour with anyone, dead or alive, or a fictional character, who would it be and what would you be doing?
Oh, dead or alive, right?
Yeah, or fictional.
Or fictional. I think it would be Oprah Winfrey. It's a little bit, maybe a little cliche, but Oprah Winfrey did something for me in a period of my life that that I was, after our kids were born, I was working in television and my husband had irregular hours as well. So it was really difficult to try to combine these two, and the kids were quite close to each other. And I was really tired of being pregnant or breastfeeding, or so I gave up work. There we go, slipping into the patriarch, very, realistically, because that was the only way to, keep all the balls in the air. And I was always watching Oprah Winfrey during cooking, also very housewifey, I know. But she always said, and she doesn't have children herself, so that was, to me, that made me think that she's a very visionary person. And she always said, the most important job in this world is raising children. So I always felt
Made you
like,
feel
oh
good.
my God, somebody thinks that I'm doing a good job. And I would just love to meet her and thank her just for that. And that's just, and then the whole part that what she created and what she did for herself with her background, fucking amazing. I mean,
Talking about change makers, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Absolutely. That's a good one.
yeah.
I have a feeling that you might at some point be able to speak with her. So
I would love
keeping my
to.
fingers crossed for you.
Yeah.
If you were president of the world, what would your first rule be that you would implement? Or law?
The first law? God, that's not an easy question. I would
They're
think
not
maybe
supposed to be
the
easy.
power or something. My first law, maybe. God, that's difficult somehow. I think maybe needs to be something with I don't know how you can translate this in a law, but that you have to be able to step into somebody else's shoes. So if you judge somebody, then you better have walked a few miles in their shoes. So maybe the law of not judging immediately.
Because otherwise you're immediately sentenced to.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
because
love
you will
that.
never be able to understand what somebody, because you've got idiots out there, like real idiots. But in order to try to help the world make a better place, you need to even understand these idiots. You still need to be able to, why are they thinking what they are thinking? What's the story behind it? Maybe they were raised in a certain way, or maybe they experienced something, or maybe they're just mad at the world because they haven't been able to get the chances that somebody else got. So maybe if you just take on the madness or the angriness, then maybe this person will deflate. And so I think maybe walking into somebody else's shoes for a while.
That's a very compassionate new president. I would vote for you.
Yay!
What's your most controversial opinion?
Oh God, are you sure?
Yes, let's go there.
I think my most controversial opinion is that I think we should abolish religion.
Yeah, okay.
Not the pure form, like like I only know a little bit about the Bible, but so like the 10 Amendments, they're beautiful, beautiful. Just stick to the 10 Amendments. Don't make all these little rules about what you can and cannot do, and who can say this and who can say that, and what kind of dress you have to wear, what dress you not have to wear, or no, just
So what was made out of it, right? Like the stories that were hooked onto something that was very pure in its origin. Yeah.
Yeah.
Last question. Your favorite book, movie, or song of all time, and why?
All of three of them, or one of them?
No, but whatever.
Book, movie, or song. Yeah, I've got three different ones in my head now. I think maybe to be a little bit more philosophical, because that's the background of my company and the way I approach life, is it's a book. It's called The White Man's Burden, and this is about stepping into somebody else's shoes, and it is about how you can help going forward without forgetting the past, which is, in my case, since I'm white, the white man's burden. And I'm really happy to see now that things are changing now a little, not nearly enough, obviously, but I really like the fact that we are starting to be able to look back on history and on history as a human species and say, okay, we fucked up here, big time.
Yeah.
We probably didn't know better at the time, but it's time to say, I'm sorry, we fucked up there. And so this whole taking accountability for something that went wrong, or something that you did or you were part of, is something that can be really healing for other people, for yourself as well. Just so to learn to say, okay, I fucked up, sorry, did something really wrong here. I'll try to learn from it and move on. I think that was a lesson that is something that is very important, because we don't encourage kids to make mistakes anymore, because everything has to be perfect all of a sudden, all the time. So just learning to make mistakes and be okay with that, and say sorry if something went wrong, or I had an old-fashioned opinion maybe on subject A, and I've been talking to people now, I think differently. So just being able to say sorry, or
So The White Man's Burden, who is it written by? Who's the author?
I have no idea. I just love the title, and I forgot who.
The White Man's Burden, but that should be easy to look up.
And the whole subject is about helping other people in less fortunate countries, and why that system doesn't work if you keep approaching it from the top down, like you're on top. I mean, there is no top, there's no down. I mean, you have to ask people in certain situations what they think might work for them. You can't just put it, say it, you sit in your office as a white guy and say, this is what is going to work for all these poor little people there. And that was something, that point of view of, and also made me realize that I'm part of that world as well, that you cannot say something about somebody else's situation if you haven't been in that situation yourself. So you cannot judge. You can have an opinion, but judging is something different, and it's difficult. It was very easy to judge. I mean, it's like very easy to judge, but it made me realize to start to learn a little bit that the things that I was the way I was looking at the world might be completely different for somebody else.
We all need to read more books anyway, so thanks for that tip. So movie or song, or both?
Movie or song? Movie or song? God, I just song is I love Georgia. Georgia, just don't know. I just love the song. It's melancholic. I just love it. But I have so many songs that I love, but this one is especially, I like it. And movie, right? That's more difficult. movie. Got so many. No, I'm just gonna go with something completely non, how do you say, no depth, just fun, just entertainment, because I think for our short films also we need more entertainment. Not everything has to be so heavy. Notting Hill.
Oh,
Just
yes,
romantic, shitty
yes.
story, but just, you could feel with the characters, and it's a bit patriarch, I know, but still, it's just a lovely love story. And
Rom-com.
you want to, yeah, you just a rom-com. I'm working on a rom-com right now, so that's also something, maybe that's why it's on top of my mind. But it's just the fact that two people like each other, and that you root for them, and even though they're from different worlds, you just hope that they get there happily ever after.
I love that movie. Although I did say the other day to my daughter, who also said something about a movie, about, a romance in a movie, and I keep reminding her, this is just a movie, Maya. This does not exist.
Yeah,
Because, you hardly ever see it. I mean, this could also be the pessimistic single speaking here, but I'll leave that up
yeah,
for interpretation. Now,
yeah.
finally, where can people find you and your work?
We have, for now, we still have one website, but it's going to be in September. There are going to be two different websites, because one is going to be especially for the foundation, and one is especially for our corporate work. But for now, it's still just www.equsfilm.com, and that's written. It's funny because everybody pronounces it differently,
It's
which
a
is
great name, but like, how do you write
I
it?
love it. You see people struggle with it. Jonathan also.
Yeah.
Equs. I think that's so funny. No, it's written EQUS, and it's basically my husband thought of it, because we the company I was coming from had a zebra as in the logo, and I wanted to keep the zebra, which is obviously black and white, and so I was taking a stroll with my husband, and then Tim said, I said, what's the Latin word for zebra? And it turns out to be equus, but with an extra U, so EQUUS. So it's basically horse, but zebra is also part of horse. So so then he said, why don't you dump one U and you make it EQ, because you do so much things on your gut feeling, on your
I love that.
people,
Yeah.
not your IQ, and then you have us as the last part, because you don't ever do things alone. You always do things in teams with other people. So then you've got EQ and us, and then you've got EQs, and then you still have sort of a wrong spelled zebra. So that's why it came to be equsfilm.com.
That's awesome. And you're on Facebook, Instagram,
Facebook,
LinkedIn.
Instagram, yeah, we're all over the place. Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
We're going to link it in the show notes.
Oh,
I
nice.
thank you so much. This was really refreshing. I'm so glad that you were the first woman on the Rocketwoman show. This is truly inspiring. Not only the work that you do, but also the way that you share it. I think it definitely invites me to have that authentic approach to it. And yeah, I'm really curious to see where this is going. I have a hunch. So I'm like this podcast show definitely needs to have several seasons, because I need to have all of my guests back, because I really want to see where it's going. Now my
Yeah.
universe is bigger, now I know things that I can't unknow, so I'm curious.
Yeah. But I
I
want
do
to thank
wish.
you as well, because you are the example of what I just talked about. You just took the step. You just started out and did it, and started your podcast with a great title. And you just do this by yourself, inspiring other people via your channels. And I think that's very, very applaud worthy. So thank you
Oh,
very much. And thank you for having me.
oh, thank you so much. Yeah. Well, I do wish you all the very best until next time, and we'll be back in touch with you. I'll think of a maybe we'll just do that feels good. Maybe towards the end of the year, do like this big podcast with all of the guests.
Oh,
Like
cool.
have the screen full, and
Yeah,
oh, that'd be
cool.
great. Yeah, you see, you inspired me. I love it. Thank you so much, Muriel. Take care. All the very best to you. Bye.
Same to you, Sandra. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank
Thanks for tuning into the Rocketwoman show. If you've enjoyed this podcast, please like and subscribe, leave a comment and share it with your universe. We can always inspire each other's orbits. All episodes are available on YouTube and Spotify, and new ones are always released on a Friday. For updates, you can find me on Instagram at The Rocketwoman Show, and if you're interested in my work as a guidance coach, I work with human design, the gene keys, astrology, and plenty of other intuitive wisdom that I've collected over the past 20 years. So if that resonates, go and check out my website, thezencubator.com, or follow the Zen Cubator on Instagram or Facebook. I wish you a magical week and hope to welcome you back next time.